Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. And in the famous words, and I will keep doing this every episode, of the greatest Premier League manager of all time, Unai Emery, good evening. And welcome to episode 31. And think I would say the biggest guest. Yeah, I'm going to say that. Biggest guest we've had on the podcast since we've been going 2 months now. Coming on, we're going to introduce him in 2 minutes. But before we get into that, just a few little housekeeping for everyone listening or watching at home. Don't forget to go and follow us on all of our social media pages on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, LinkedIn, Tumblr, amongst 90 million other things that I've put us on as well. And don't forget as well, we have recently just gone on to Apple Music and Spotify. So we are now on those two platforms as well as SoundCloud, and you'll be able to watch this on YouTube. So we're on multiple different platforms as well. So yes, so don't forget that we did a podcast the other day, on Wednesday for you guys, where we discussed the Reading's weird win against Wickham. And we also discussed all things Premier League, Pickford, and we also discussed about the Formula One this weekend and the NFL as well. But we've had a meeting today, and we're going to change up how we do that podcast for you guys soon. But welcome, Mr. Lowe. How are you, sir?
Very good, thank you. That's a very nice build-up.
Thank you. I have this very much tendency when I have guests on this to really hype them up, really hype them up, and then they get on and they go, oh, I don't know if I could live up to that.
Well, that's how you get on people's good sides, isn't it, to begin with? So I'm sure that's good. I like it.
Perfect. So let's start about you. Ryan's got the first question for you, and let's talk a little bit about yourself before we get on to anything else.
Okay. Yeah. So first question we got. So what actually got you into journalism? What made you want to take that path?
Well, I've always kind of enjoyed writing. Things like English and history at school, and I guess it all stemmed from there really. And when I kind of got my first break in journalism was at university actually. So I went to the University of Reading and started writing for the university newspaper, and that's when I kind of had my first taste of Reading FC really. So that was back in 2007, and I started doing sort of a few reports and stuff. Went to the home games, did the press conferences with Steve Coppell, I think it was in the manager, and then kind of it built from there really. I think I became the sports editor in my second year, I think it was. And then went away to France for a year, and then came back. So my fourth year, I did some stories as well. So that's kind of where it all started, and then it led to some work experience at the local Reading papers, so the Reading Chronicle and the Reading Post, and never really looked back from then really.
I am so happy. I'm so happy you said Reading Uni as well, because my research is matching up to what I was looking at as well.
Yeah.
I was just going to go with
that's right.
Down, but was it always like sports journalism that you wanted to do, or was it just journalism in general?
I've always been interested in sport, and obviously kind of it's a very keen interest of mine, but I have actually worked on kind of the news desks as well, for the Reading Post and Get Reading. So I wouldn't say it's something kind of I was it was kind of my ultimate aim to be a sports journalist. It was obviously nice to be a sports journalist, because say I'm keen on sport and football, and I found myself, if I wasn't working on a Saturday, I'd probably be watching a game or listening to a game or following a game in some capacity. So I might as well try and get a job where that kind of incorporates it. So it's obviously for any sports fan, being a sports journalist is a great position, and ultimately that is kind of what I prefer. But I have also I have done news. News is interesting as well. It's not quite all council meetings and stuff, but there's a lot of variety to it as well. So I think anyone who is thinking of going into journalism, I think it's best to kind of keep your options open as much as possible really, and not kind of not try and focus on one route specifically, because it doesn't always work out that way. You've got to kind of be flexible and kind of have a few strings to your bow if possible.
So when my research that I did looking into you, was I saw that you studied BA French and History at Reading Uni, if that's right. Please tell me that's right.
Yes, that's correct. Yeah,
my research is correct. So what made you want to study BA French and history?
Well, I mean, I've always liked traveling. I do like traveling. I like France in particular. I had a couple of school exchanges over there. And yeah, it's just a country I really like. I like the language, and I was keen to kind of keep it up after school. And also, I liked history as well, and I can really go down on one side. And I didn't really feel like studying history for 3 years because I thought it'd be kind of too intense, perhaps, and too much writing in the essays and stuff. I thought just try and do a bit of both, and that kind of led me to do French and history. So I got a bit of both worlds really. I got a year abroad in France as well, and managed to kind of keep my interest going for as long as possible.
So then after you did that, you went to Bournemouth Uni, if I'm correct, to do a speedy up media course, if my research is correct.
Well, it wasn't at Bournemouth University. It was actually it was based in the Bournemouth Daily Echo offices.
Mm-hmm.
I think it was kind of run in conjunction with the university, but it wasn't a university course or anything. But it was just basically a fast track journalism course. It was over 6 months, and it kind of gave me my initial qualifications to go into journalism, the NCTJ kind of preliminary exams, I think it was. So you do a sports journalism module, there's a media law module, there's a news reporting module, there's a shorthand module, I think it's 4, and that kind of gives you the platform to then go on and get some experience in the newsroom.
So if Mark's research was from there, did you go from there to get Reading? How did that move?
Yeah, I mean, as I say, I did that fast track course, and I can't remember exactly, but I think it led me to some work experience at I think it was at Get Reading, or actually initially it was, from what I remember, it was on the news desk of the Bracknell Times and Wokingham Times, so they're all going in the same office, the Reading Post as well. So I did a bit of work experience on that. I think I helped out on the sports desk kind of as and when I could as well, because I think I went to a couple of games with Johnny Fordham. I don't know if you remember him. He's one of the ex-Reading Post, Reading FC reporters.
Am I right in saying he does England rugby kind of coverage now?
Yeah, he's with the Sun. Yeah. I saw him a couple of Reading games at the end of last season actually. But yeah, his focus now is on rugby, and he's got a good gig there. Really, he sort of goes around, travels around with them. And, he's done all right for himself. So so I think I helped him out, and then I think then a job came up on the sports desk at the Reading Post. So I accepted that and did that for a few years, and then when the Reading Post closed and we went online to Get Reading, I went back to news. Was news reporter for a couple of years, and then while helping Charlie Watts, who was Johnny's predecessor on the Post, and then I took over from Charlie in January 2017. Mark might know better, but it was around that time, I think.
I'm not gonna lie. I'm the only way that I've done my research is I'm gonna be open and very honest here. How I did my research was I think I found your LinkedIn page, and that's where. Yeah, I know.
I haven't updated that for ages.
I found there was so many Jonathon Lows with like no pictures or anything. But as I was scrolling through, it was people that have either viewed your profile or people that have been on your profile recently. And Courtney and Matt Joy were the ones that popped up on the page that I found of yours, and I went, okay, if them two have been on your page, then that must mean it's you. So that's where I did my research and got it from.
Fair enough. Yeah.
So this next one is probably my favourite question that we ask everyone. But if you could go back to your younger self, let's say 16, just leaving school, finishing GCSEs, and give yourself one piece of advice, what would you say to yourself?
God, that's putting me on the spot. I think what I said earlier about kind of keeping your options open as much as possible. Try not to be nailed down one route specifically which you want to go into, because invariably stuff happens in life and it makes you veer off course. And as I say, if you've got a few kind of talents or skills or whatever it is to put your hand to, whether it is something you want to do or maybe it's something you don't want to do, but if you can help yourself into something you don't want to do, you can maybe kind of go back to that path that you originally wanted to be on. So I think it's just all about kind of being flexible and trying to develop as many talents and skills, qualifications as much as you can, and then hopefully going forward you've then got a few options to consider what your next step is going to be, whether it's a job or a apprenticeship or university or course or whatever. But I think just being about being open-minded and being willing to try new challenges and face new things which you haven't really thought of in the past.
Yeah, so that's, like you said, advice that you'd give to anyone and follow yourself.
Yeah, I think so, yeah.
So next one, do you remember your first report, article, your first piece of work that got published?
In a word, no. I remember I remember doing a few bits on working experience. I remember I got my first front page on the Reading Post was about Alex McCarthy being called up to the England squad. I think they were playing Brazil in a friendly. And obviously, he was the up and coming Reading keeper at the time. And that managed to get onto the front page of the Reading Post. So that was quite a proud moment, I guess. I think I got onto the front page of the Bournemouth Echo as well. That there was when I was there on work experience. I did a story about, I think someone who got, I think it was a teenager got a tattoo whilst on holiday in, I want to say Egypt, and there'd been some complications and they got an infection or something, and yeah, obviously they weren't too happy about that, so that made it onto the front page of the Bournemouth Echo. So yeah, I guess I remember those, a few things like that, but not sounding too big-headed, I've had obviously quite a few things published now, so they kind of all merge into one really, and it's hard to kind of remember too much about what's been published and where really.
Yeah, right. So you've covered all types of sport: football, cricket, rugby. What's it been like covering them? And then a follow-up one to do with the same thing. How has it been working during the COVID pandemic?
Yeah, I mean, I think in terms of what I have covered, it's in terms of sport, it's mainly been football and rugby. I did a lot of the London Irish games when we did it for the Reading Post, and that was really enjoyable because a lot of the people you came across in rugby were really friendly. Had good stories to tell and were really kind of welcoming and approachable, and yes, and I felt kind of access was a lot better compared to football, because football is a lot of clubs are very precious about their players and what they can and can't say, but I thought rugby players and managers were a bit more open, which was nice. And yeah, I mean, I did a few kind of ice hockey games to the Bracknell Bees and things like that, but yeah, I mean, it's mainly been football and yeah, obviously it's really enjoyable. I say as a sports fan, going to games, speaking to managers, speaking to players, getting to sit in the nice-ish seats, albeit in the cold. Yeah, it's a nice job. So I can't really have too many complaints or anything. And in terms of what it's been like in COVID, it's clearly different. Clearly things aren't the same. It's we all changed our lifestyle a bit. Don't need to get to games as early as I used to, for example, because there's not the usual halls to get through, and obviously the atmosphere is completely different. And
that was one of the things I really wanted to ask you was about the atmosphere. It's one thing. I'm sorry for jumping in. Was the one thing I really wanted to ask you about, because when we had Matt Joy come on last week, he says it's absolutely horrible. He goes, when he's in Medeski watching the game, he goes, it's nice to hear what the managers are saying, but then there gets to a point where you go, okay. But sometimes, because he's a Reading fan as well, and he's like, he can hear the chants and he can get behind it, and there's more of a buzz when the fans are going at it. Not that Reading do that much often, but when we do, it's quite a nice feeling. What is it like for yourself? Because you've been doing this for absolutely years, and you're probably one of the best ones that can do it. So what's it like with your experience, what you've seen before now? What's the feeling like?
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, I've covered games, mainly kind of like under 23 games in the past, and they're very similar. It's very difficult to maybe at least at the beginning it was kind of difficult to kind of really kind of understand what was going on, really, because it's just, especially at somewhere like the Medeski, it's so kind of echoey, and everyone's so aggressive in their shouting and everything, and you just like, calm down, lads. It's only a game, but you really kind of see the intensity and the ferocity that the players really go for it and go at it. And obviously, they don't have the buzz of the fans to feed off, but I think when teams are behind in games, when Reading are behind, for example, I think, well, like any team, they would struggle to get back into it, because fans give you that extra man, that extra advantage, really, and kind of can help kind of influence the result. Whereas now it's all about, I guess, raw talent, and you're kind of, well, the players are left to their own devices, and it's interesting to see from a journalist perspective how good these players really are, because this is the true test, really, being able to show yourselves when there's no one shouting at the ref, no one shouting at opposition players, no one shouting at you, how you can be how good you really are, and how good the team is generally. So does that answer your question? I feel like I've waffled.
No. Because I think the words that Matt Joy, he said basically exactly the same as what you said. And Courtney hasn't been allowed in, but he spoke about how the atmosphere will be different for the players. We just wanted to get your perspective of how you feel, because of how long you've been covering Reading, and when you've been to all the games, how it feels different. What do you think as well? And I want to get your opinion on. We asked Matt Joy about the situation with Mark Bowen and Nigel Howe. I know it's gone long past that, and that's miles about that, but I want to get your opinion, because we've never, as a Reading fan, I've been a Reading fan for now 20 years. I think I've been a season ticket holder for like 18. I have never experienced, I think in football in general, that a manager was put in charge, signed a new contract at the end of the season, was sacked from his role, but then got offered a director of football role. But then the chief executive of the role was then moved to a different position, so he doesn't concentrate on football. And then a Chinese Jae Young Pang come in to take over that role. And then we've had an unknown manager come in, a Serbian manager that I think 99% of our audience would never have heard of before. So what was going through your mind during all of the events that happened through that? Because it seemed to happen on a Monday morning, and it just went wild.
Yeah, I mean that was so you're talking about the Bowen dismissal.
Yeah. Everything around it. How was it for you? What was going through your mind and everything that was going on?
Well, I mean, like everyone else, I couldn't really believe it. You hear a few things about how it's maybe not the best, best run club behind the scenes, and he obviously had that Bulldog interview at the end of last season where he said it was all a bit of a mess, and
That was a bit strange.
this proved it, and I don't think Reading are certainly not the only club which is badly run behind the scenes. I say is because I don't think things have changed overnight, even though the team is doing well at the moment. You obviously got the owners. How interested the owner is, we don't know. But I mean that was a completely strange. Well, it was just over a week or so, because I remember going to the Tottenham game on the Friday afternoon, and I think the players didn't even know they were going to Portugal, or how long they were going to go to Portugal for, obviously to meet the new manager. And then obviously Bowen goes out with them and seems to be having a good time, and the next thing you know, he's leaving. So I mean it was just a crazy week, but not really an unexpected one, I think, to be perfectly honest. I'd say that there was obviously a few murmurings, with tension perhaps with Nigel Howe and the owner. Clearly they weren't seeing off that same hymn sheet, and the impact of COVID as well, and the club's finances, and we all saw back in, when was it, April, May time, the finances for last season, that the wage bill was just completely ridiculous. And they were still lumped with a lot of, well, they are still lumped with a lot of players who are on big money, and for a team like Reading, it's just not sustainable. And thankfully at the moment that they've got things right on the pitch, which kind of takes the focus away from it. But I still think there are some issues away from the pitch, which are not going to be resolved overnight, but do need resolving at some point. Having said that, there's a lot of other clubs in a similar position. So Reading are by no means unique in this situation. But we've got this nice distraction that they're doing quite well at the moment. So long may that continue.
So what was your impression of Bowen when you've interviewed him, when you've done stuff with it before? Because there's a lot of stuff that has come out that is alleged. We can't say it's true or it's not, because it's been reported by certain people, but it's never been confirmed by the club, and it's never been confirmed by Bowen himself. But what was your opinion on Bowen himself? Because there's been a lot of a lot of reports about him. But what did you get the impression of him?
I really liked Mark Bowen. He was a straight talker. And I think he put a few people in their place. But to be fair to him, what he'd inherited was, it was a mess, really. And it wasn't just a mess because of Jose Gomez. It was a mess over the past, what has it been now, kind of 5-6 years. Apart from that Yap Stam season when they went to the playoff final, it's been one big mess. And some big changes had to be made, and some big decisions had to be made. And I think he was slowly turning things around. He obviously got them a lot more solid and resolute on the pitch. And we saw that over the sort of Christmas period at the end of, middle of last season, when they think they won 4 on the trot, did they? And which finished with the win at Fulham.
December period, we only conceded like 3 goals, and were unbeaten through the whole of December.
Yeah, and things were getting back on track, and albeit they didn't start January and February, I don't think, too well. That they sort of towards the end of February they picked up some results, and obviously they got that 3-1 win at Birmingham, and that put them to within 9 points of the playoffs, if I seem to remember. And then obviously the pandemic hit. So I think although they weren't perhaps kind of steaming ahead or anything, that they were going on the right track. To use lots of railway metaphors, and then the turning point over those last few games was that late equaliser by Stoke in the first game after the lockdown, and when they resumed play. And then it was all about kind of just seeing out the season. And yes, performances weren't very good, but you could understand them. The playoffs weren't possible anymore. They were too good for relegation, and a lot of the players probably knew that they were going to be leaving the club. So it put him in a very difficult position, because I think he did his best, but ultimately it didn't really matter what the results were going to be, because I'm pretty sure thought he would be in place over the summer and going into the new season, but a lot of the players weren't. There was going to be lots of changes, so it's kind of going through the motions those last few weeks or so. And then obviously you start pre-season, and they picked up a few good results, I think, and they seem to be going on the right track. Perhaps it wasn't that kind of spark around the camp and the fan base, but I think things were moving in the right direction. And I think Reading were set to have perhaps another solid, maybe not spectacular season, but they were going to be challenging for kind of top half and possibly even top six. So
do you think Bowen?
I think he had them in a good place.
Do you think Bowen would have got? We'll talk about Paunovic in a minute. Do you think Bowen would got what the players have now got from Paunovic if he was in charge now?
I'm going to say no, because I think Paunovic has exceeded everyone's expectations, and
by far
he's getting a lot of the good things out of the players. I think there's still some things to work on. Whether Bowen would have got that same level, I don't know. I think, just for example, I don't think he wasn't quite seeing eye to eye with Liam Moore, was he, at the end of last season? Whether that would have continued into this season, who knows? But Paunovic has clearly got getting the best out of Liam Moore now. But who to say Bowen might have got the best out of Michael Morrison and Tom McIntyre, and they might be the two this season. So we don't know. But I think he wasn't hugely kind of. He wasn't a spectacular coach. He wasn't going to be playing lots of free-flowing, nice football, but he was going to be grinding out results and making Reading a hard side to beat. And I think most fans would have taken that, certainly for this season, given the up and down nature of the past few years, or mostly down nature. So I think it was all about stability this season. I think Bowen would have provided that. Whether Paunovic provides that remains to be seen, but he's obviously started off extremely well, and we hope that continues. But I think certainly Bowen had deserved a bit more time in the role, to see how he would have done over sort of at least the first few months of the season.
So all the Reading talk, going back to your time in Bournemouth. So have you always been a Reading fan? Are you a Reading fan? Is that what made you want to go to the Reading Chronicle and do Reading, or was
this is the most important question that everyone wants to know, by the way?
Well, I think I've made it clear that Reading are kind of like my second team, and and obviously I really want them to do well. I've been following them for what now? I've been in the area for near on 13 years, so I do obviously have a very soft spot for them. However, my team is Portsmouth. I grew up there, and they are my team. So that is my team. But obviously, I do want Reading to do well. I can't say I'm a diehard Reading fan. I'm not, but I do like them. I do look out for the results. I obviously follow them through thick and thin, and I'd love to see them do well. So that's my position on them.
Perfect. I've always wondered if you have been a Reading fan, or if it wasn't, what team do you support? So that's fascinating. So we're going to go on to a quick fire round, where we're going to ask you a question, and we want to get your quickest answer that you could possibly can. So if you're ready, this is no pressure. Be careful what you say as well, because you might want to interview some of these. And no, I'm joking. So the first one is a two-part question. What is your first impression of Paunovic, wherever you say his name, and how do you think he's getting on?
Well, first impression is very good, but like with any other manager, they always want to wow the press, don't they? So, but no, sort of nice guy, intense guy. I think workaholic, but yeah, comes across very well, and yeah, clearly getting the best out of the players. So, he's doing his job, and that's what everyone wants to see. Sorry, what was the second part?
So, how do you think he's getting on?
Well, I mean, I think he's doing exceptionally well. He's exceeded expectations. However, I think there's still a few things to work on.
Okay, best person. You could do this Reading, or you can do this whatever you've done before. Best person you have ever interviewed.
Well, I mean, it depends how you define best, but I always liked Joby McAnuff. He's a really nice guy. He spoke well. Thought about his answers. Was always interesting to be in the company of, and just a really nice chap.
Worst person you have ever interviewed.
I think to put a bit of a specification on it, the way we done this with Courtney when he came on as well, it was sort of like by best and worst we mean, like you just said, you got a lot out of. Whereas worst, was there anyone that was ever like you asked them quite an open-ended question and just got a very blunt response and didn't really give much back to you?
I get that all the time, yeah. To be honest, I mean,
Courtney's answer for that was Callum Harriott, where he said he was the most difficult to try and get an answer at because he didn't want to be there. He never wanted to do an interview. He struggled to get. You would get 1 or 2 word answers out of him. That was the one person he said he really struggled to have an interview with.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, I mean, I wouldn't say a lot of the players, but some of the players are difficult to get anything out of. I don't know why I keep thinking of Hal Robson-Kanu, but
that wouldn't surprise me.
I think there was probably a couple of occasions, I think, when he was a bit difficult to get anything out of. The thing is, Hal was a bit weird actually, because sometimes he was fine, and he was really nice, but other times he was just kind of very kind of solemn, and yeah, didn't really want to be there, and thought kind of he had better things to do, and yeah, so at times that was difficult. So yeah, I'll probably say Hal Robson-Kanu.
Yeah. So this is another 2-parter one, and Mark's only put Reading down, but I'm going to ask for Portsmouth as well, just to get your take on that as well. But so who is the best signing that you've seen, 1, Reading make, and 2, Portsmouth make? There's some good ones for both clubs, definitely.
The best signing. Do you mean the best signing in terms of the best player?
Player quality that's either surprised you or gone, yeah, that is a quality player.
Let's put me on the spot. I mean, I think we all saw the quality that Emi Martinez brought to Reading.
Yeah.
Although it was obviously a very short spell, I thought he was absolutely an exceptional goalkeeper. Never put a foot wrong. Absolutely outstanding athleticism, awareness, kind of a presence. So something he's certainly up there with best Reading signing I've seen. Trying to think a couple of others really. I liked, this might not seem popular, but I liked Nathaniel Chalobah when he was at Reading on that loan spell. I thought he was really good. He really brought some quality to Reading. And I'm trying to think about one more. I think I might say John Swift.
Yeah.
I know he has his up and down, and I know he possibly splits opinion, but on his day, he's an absolute joy to watch. And I've always said when he plays well, Reading play well.
Yeah.
And it's unfortunate he's had all these injuries, and he can kind of go through some games, but when he's performing to his potential and when he's playing his best, he's certainly one of the best players in the Championship, and I'm sure he can get it in the Premier League as well. If he just strings it together on a consistent basis, stays injury free, then he's a really, really great player. He's good crossing ability, good set piece delivery, and just a good kind of overall awareness and creative mind, really, to open up defences and entertain. Most importantly, that's what we want to see. We want to see entertaining football, and he provides just that.
Yep.
You want Pompey as well, don't you? Best Portsmouth signings. For me, I don't know if you know. Remember Lasana Diarra?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So he was a player who signed from Arsenal, I think it was. It was from Arsenal. And I saw him play a few times in the flesh, and he was absolutely outstanding. And he went to Real Madrid from Portsmouth, and you can see why he was far too good for Pompey. But he was at Portsmouth during their time in the Premier League, and when they won the FA Cup as well. And he was just an absolutely exceptional player. He was just again, just his kind of his just kind of technique and talent was just absolutely nothing I've seen before.
I'll tell you, my favourite Portsmouth player, I wouldn't say of all time, but one of my favourite Portsmouth was Benjani. He was, and I've seen so many stories of Harry Redknapp trying to get rid of him at an airport when he talks about it. It's absolutely brilliant. But he was one of those players that I think went under the radar of signings and just was a massive performer. He loved Portsmouth. He loved playing for Portsmouth, and I think he only really did it at Portsmouth in his career with his goals, and he definitely did it against Reading. Did he score 2 or 3 when we played when it was 7-5, I think, as well? He always loved to play against. Yeah, 7. I was at that game as well, which was something. But yeah, go on, Ryan.
Yeah, he's certainly. Yeah, I mean, from what I remember of Benjani, to be honest, I don't think he was very good at all. He had a few games. He had a few games where he scored a few goals. I think he got a hat trick against Derby, it might be. But he missed a hell of a lot as well. And he was a great trier. Fans absolutely loved him. He always put in the shift. Played with a smile on his face, which is what footballers don't do enough these days. And generally all round nice guy. But I don't think he was that good at all.
I'm going to go a bit off topic as well, talking about people that play with a smile on their face. I think football nowadays misses someone like Jimmy Bullard, who doesn't take himself too seriously, and you see a bit of a joker on the pitch. And yeah, like you just said, I think that is someone like Benjani who enjoys it. It's not a job; it's a hobby kind of thing.
That's a Kimmy Reitman saying.
It can still be a job. It can still be a job. It's just they've just got to, at least look as though they're enjoying it a bit more. I don't want to single him out, but I am. Liam Moore, for example. He's always got that kind of really stern look about him. I know he's very focused. He's very stern, and he wants to do well. But the amount of times you see him smile, he might do it a couple of times after the game or something. But you just want to kind of shake him and just think, just you're enjoying it, mate. Just smile.
I'll tell you another Reading player is Ovi Jaria. I think I've only ever seen him smile twice. That was one in the training ground picture the other day, and I think it was one of the pictures that you've got with his hand up, smiling as well. He's another one who doesn't smile, and when he smiles, it's like, oh, he literally looks quite nice now. Look at him. Oh, I get a bit of a man crush on him.
Yeah, in his defence, he's a very quiet player, and he's very kind of reserved and likes to keep himself to himself. And I've apart from the couple of club interviews, I think I've never heard him speak. I tried to listen out for him at the games actually. He got tons of people shouting, but I'd never hear him shout. He never opens his mouth. So that's him. It's just him. He's not a big talker at all. He's not very vocal. But I don't care because he's an absolutely fantastic player. So yeah.
So going back onto the questions again. So I asked you best for both teams. So we'll turn it around again and say who's the worst signing for both teams. That could be. I'll chuck a couple of examples in. It could be someone like Matej Vidra, where he didn't live up to the expectation in a lot of people's eyes, or it could just be someone who
Sonny Aluko, as everyone says,
wasn't very good.
Yeah, I mean, I think with those two players, for example, you're judging them because of their transfer fee, aren't you? And that's fair enough because that's what you do. But had Sonny Aluko been signed for 1 million, would fans' opinions of them be the same? I don't think so.
No, not.
But I know that's just how it works.
I agree with you.
I think that's always kind of something to consider.
I, for one, with Matej Vidra, who I said, I thought he was a good player, but he didn't suit our style at the time. You could see he wanted like long balls in behind, but we didn't play that style. We had Norwood sort of trying to play through the other team's defence. You could see he was trying to make the runs, but he just wasn't being found.
Well, yeah, I mean that's a different conversation. But for me, that's down to the manager, and if you've got like a really good striker on your books, you need to be playing to his strengths and need to be adapting to him. So that's a different conversation. But in terms of worst signings, I mean, there's probably a hell of a long list, isn't there? I mean, you can go through Zach Knight, Stuart Taylor, Ola John, perhaps.
We have made some terrible signings, haven't we? If you go through the list, it's quite shocking what we've done. Okay, right. Let's move on from that one then. Best manager. Right, there's two parts to this one. Best and worst manager that you have interviewed.
I mean, best manager. They've all been pretty good, to be honest. I think perhaps maybe Jose Gomez was the best one because
the beautiful man.
I mean, how can you not love that guy?
Oh, he's like God's greatest creation. He is.
I think in terms of interviewing him, it was slightly difficult because although he was perfect with English and everything, he did struggle to get his point across, and I think that came across with the squad as well, and ultimately one of the reasons why he left. But in terms of talking with him on a weekly basis, or whatever, that was always good, and Yapstan was nice as well. He always gave you kind of time for your questions. I didn't do too much of Steve Clark, so it's kind of hard to judge him. Same with Brian McDermott, actually. Interviewed him a bit, but he was always kind of quite guarded and quite reserved. And again, someone who didn't really. I think he does have a good sense of humour and stuff, but you never really saw it or heard it. And he was very plain and just kind of just next game this, next game that. And who else have we had? I mean, Paul Clement. Paul Clement was alright. He wasn't anything too special. And same with Paunovic. I guess I haven't interviewed him too many occasions, but again, he answers your questions. Give me a few silly questions, silly answers as well. But generally, all the Reading managers have been good. I can't really fault any of them, to be honest.
So
worst managers, there isn't really. Now I'm going to pass on worst managers.
So going on to the next one, I'm not going to ask this based purely from what you've seen in your job. I do it from when from your first ever game to your most recent game. What is the best game, most memorable game of football that you've been and watched live?
Memorable game. That's a good question. You probably won't like it, but probably the 7-5 against Arsenal.
I can imagine. Yeah, a very eventful game.
That was just nuts. That was really nuts. I mean,
4-1 up at half time.
Yeah, well, it was 4-0 after about 40 minutes, wasn't it? And everything, it was just going too perfectly, and you just knew that Walcott goal to make it 4-1 was going to be the danger in it, and it was.
I think I'm right in saying as well that was Emi Martinez's debut for Arsenal.
Yeah, I don't know whether it was debut. I remember certainly he played in it. And yeah, I mean, Reading were absolutely fantastic in the first half. Couldn't fault them at all, but then they just collapsed in the second half. Albeit, they kept going 5-5, I think, up to 90 minutes.
Yeah.
And then it's still kind of, what was it, 4-4, I think. And then they.
Yeah, I think
it was 4-4.
Yeah, I think we both scored
in extra time. And obviously it went to 7-5, and it could have been even more. But just I guess the contrast from Reading being absolutely amazing to being absolutely rubbish. I remember Noel Hunt called me Stevie Wonder because I gave him a 4 in the player ratings afterwards. Because I mean, how do you give a player rating after that? Because he would have got like 9 out of 10 for his first half showing, but then 2 for his second half and next time showing. So 4 was about the average.
Yeah. So this is probably a very difficult one because you tend to block out the rubbish games. But what's the worst game that you remember? I mean, you could say the same thing for the same game for other reasons, but
yeah, I mean, I've seen quite a few like dull 0-0 draws. I mean, I guess one of the most recent ones was the Huddersfield game at the end of last season. I mean, it was never going to be a classic, and obviously, 2 teams with nothing to play for, and that showed. And arguably, you can't really blame the players because their mind's elsewhere. But games like that is just a bit rubbish. And I mean, the Middlesbrough game last weekend wasn't the best, to be perfectly honest. And I think when you do a 500-mile round trip, you at least like to see a goal. But maybe that made it a bit worse, actually, just worse than the Huddersfield game. But no, I mean, obviously there's been like rubbish results from a Reading perspective and kind of dull 0-0 draws and things like that. And I've seen quite a lot over the years, kind of under Stam and Clement, just sort of rubbish results and rubbish performances. I mean, maybe that the Stevenage FA Cup replay as well when McShane got the huff at the end. McShane, I think, said something to the fans. No, he walked off, and Gunter and a few others pulled him back, and eventually they clapped the fans and all that. And that kind of leaves a bit of a sour taste because I like to see that. Like, fair enough, if you can lose a game, you lose a game, but when the fans are turning on them and everything, it's just not nice to see. And I remember actually a game against Middlesbrough, I think it's about 2016. I think Reading lost. Maybe it was 2 games actually. So one game was when Middlesbrough scored like in the last minute, and it was going to be a really great point for Reading. I think it was the game Middlesbrough like nearly secured promotion or something like that. And it was a really great performance for Reading, and they kind of got undone right at the end. And obviously, it's just devastating because not just the travelling, because they put in such great performance. That was a bit of a difficult pill to swallow, if you
Yeah.
like. And another one where they lost, I think 3-1. I think it was towards the end of McDermott's second time there, and he was a bit pissed off because he was being asked about a lot of the players like Ola John, I think, and Lucas Piazza, and he was like, they're not going to be here. I'm probably not going to be here, and it was basically a bit of a waste of time. So again, you kind of feel for them in that position because no one's a winner really. It's not nice to see, and it's not nice to see Reading lose at the same time as well. So there's been quite a few kind of poor results, poor performances, poor away trips. Too many to count, I'm afraid.
Okay, then. So let's quickly move on and rank this transfer window out of 10. And if you could pick one player that's in the academy at the moment that could be the next Michael Elise, Danny Loader, Tom McIntyre, Tom Holmes, got a lot of Toms there. And the next one that will come through, who do you think it will be?
So the transfer window. I think it's not wanting to sit on the fence, but I think it's slightly early to say because I want to see a bit more of Estevez and Semedo first, well, and Gibson as well. Whether he's going to get a start, I don't know. But I think if we give it a few weeks at least to see how well they do. I think to rank the window in terms of the window itself, I think probably it's a good solid kind of 7.5 out of 10 because they got rid of quite a few players clearly. The ones out of contract, the loan players going back as well, and I think that was much needed. Got rid of quite a few of the academy lads as well who didn't look as though they were going to go onto the first team. So good for all parties if they move on. And then bringing players in, I think it was always going to be you weren't going to see a huge amount of signings, but they seem to have strengthened in a few positions, and you always want one more striker or one more creative midfielder, but I think they've got a pretty good squad at the moment. I think from what I saw of Estevez and Semedo over the past week or so, that they do look good signings. I hope Semedo doesn't really turn into someone like Pele, who kind of has one good game in maybe 2 or 3, and kind of by the end is just kind of, his mind's probably elsewhere, which is fair enough if you're a loan player. But Estevez has got a bit more of a point to prove. So same with Gibson. So I think that's going to be good for Reading. And in terms of the young players coming through, it's interesting actually because I haven't actually seen too many of the people like Ethan Bristow and Dejan Tetek, because they were basically the under-18s, and I've barely seen the under-18s over the past couple of years. I've seen quite a bit of the under-23s, and then even being with the under-23s, so it's been a big step up for them this season. It's very difficult to say who's going to be the next big thing for the Reading first team. Perhaps someone like Nelson Abbey, because he's got international recognition as well for England so far. I know it doesn't say too much at the moment because it's kind of youth level, but I think he's perhaps maybe one to watch. I know there's obviously a lot of centre backs in the pecking order at Reading, and even more so after Gibson's arrival. But possibly he might be one to watch in the kind of coming season. Really, I don't think we should expect too much, but maybe over the next 2 or 3 years, he could be someone who could come in.
I think there's that striker. Is it Melvin
Lambert?
Yeah, him. He's scoring some few goals now for the under-23s. Of getting notifications of a throw when they play, and normally it's him that's getting the goal. So he seems to be quite a. I don't know whether he's a big prospect that could be coming through, but he seems to be doing quite well with his age level that he's doing it at.
I didn't say he was another new one with. Sorry, just for the under-18s, and he hasn't even played for the 23s, or certainly I haven't. Well, not before this season. So he's a completely new one on me as well. So hopefully he does kick on and kind of is around kind of the. I think he needs to have a good season with the 23s first, like like Josh Barrett did, and like Sam Smith did, and then it's a case of whether they can kind of step up to the next level to kind of first team squad level and ultimately first team.
Perfect. Right, let's move on to this weekend and what happened on Tuesday. So I just want to get your quick thoughts. Let's do this quickly because I know we've kept you quite a long time. But we want to get your thoughts quickly on what you think about the Wickham game, and who was your man of the match.
Wickham game, the first half was absolutely dreadful. Back to the bad old days of the rubbish under Clement, the rubbish under Stam, the rubbish under Gomez, probably the rubbish under Bowen as well. They were just completely off the pace. They couldn't string two passes together, and I guess against a better side, they probably would have been 2 or 3-0 down. And I guess the half was summed up when Yaki Mata had that brilliant chance to open scoring, and he somehow he headed it, but
that was harder to miss than it was to score.
I mean, out of all the players as well, you want a header to fall to him, and somehow I don't think he didn't even sky it, did he? He just dumped it into the ground. But fair play to them that they stepped it up in the second half and got a good goal. Even though I thought that perhaps the goalkeeper could have done a bit better, but no, I think that they're defensively a lot more resolute, a lot more sound now, and apart from that save from Raphael at the end, which is very good, they didn't really give Wickham a chance, and the result was never really in doubt. So I think overall it was a deserved victory, and the type of victory you might not have seen in previous years. You probably would have seen a draw or possibly a defeat as well. So that shows that they are progressing. And in terms of man of the match, I think someone like Michael Morrison again. I think he's been absolutely superb this season. I think he's been pretty superb ever since he signed for Reading. Really, over the last season and a bit, he's been absolutely great. And you know what you're getting with him. He does have limitations, but he also has strength, and he's a great season pro. Got a lot of time for him, and he put in another excellent performance.
Perfect. After every game, we go on to Instagram Live, and myself and Adam, who does the Tyler Stand as well, come on and we talk about the game. We didn't want to keep giving it to Liam Moore and Michael Morrison because I think we've given it to them every single game so far this season. So we thought because of his consistency and because of the way that he played, we gave it to Reno. As a person that I don't think has actually put a foot wrong properly yet this season. So that's who we go. So let's get on to Rotherham. Let's move on to the Rotherham game coming up this weekend. So I've got some stats for everyone. Ready for this? Done my research on this. So,
lovely.
I know. Reading versus Rotherham record. So Reading have won 21 times. They have drawn 16 and lost 10. Paul Warner, who is the Rotherham manager's record against Reading, is he has played Reading 3 times. He's never won a game. He's drawn 2 and lost 1. The previous 5 meetings between Rotherham and Reading have gone like this. We won 1-0 in the 23rd of February 2016. In the 22nd of October 2016, we won 1-0. I think there's a pattern going on here. The 17th of April 2017, we won 2-1. 15th of December 2018, which I think was Gomez's last game. Was it? No. We drew 1-1. And the 23rd of February 2019, we drew 1-1, which I think was the game that Warner had a massive moan about Gomez after the game, where he was calling Warner's football long ball football. I think if I remember correctly. So how do you see this game going? Do you think it's going to be exactly the way that we set up against Wickham? How do you see our play style going to be against Rotherham this weekend?
Yeah, I think it's going to be quite similar to Wickham actually, and I would probably stick with the same starting 11, even though Estevez and Spade did their chances no harm on Tuesday night. I think it'll be another grind, at the risk of falling into the cliches, but I think they'll need to be defensively sound because I think Rotherham are Rotherham in particular are long ball specialists, whatever you want to call them, dead ball specialists. So they rely a lot on their set pieces, and they're very good at them. So I think Reading are going to have to be, very, very solid, very resolute, and there's no reason why they can't continue their, form so far this season. So I don't think they'll have too much of a problem, limiting Rotherham's chances and hopefully goals. And I think hopefully, they might just need that sort of one bit of quality like they did against Wycombe to score. So, I think that they'll, like Wycombe, it'll be kind of quite a physical game, physical approach. And I'm sure, Reading are now the team to be shot at, really. So, every team is going to be looking to disrupt Reading as much as possible, and they're going to have to find ways to counter that. So it'll be interesting to see kind of over the next few weeks, not just Saturday, how teams go about approaching games with Reading, and seeing how Reading adapt. But that they've got the qualities at both ends of the pitch really to be the difference. So if they can just string it together, ultimately take the chances when they got them and can keep Rotherham from scoring, then Reading will probably win.
So there's a few more stats I want to throw at you both that I've just looked at and I'm going to say big up to Talk Reading because I've basically just stalked your page. This is after the Wycombe game was the best start in 35 years in Reading's history. I saw this as well. League games it's taken Reading to reach 5 clean sheets. In 2017-18, it took us 27 games. In 2018-19, it took us 30. In 2019-20, it took us 21. This season, it's only taken us 6, which is just absolutely unbelievable. There's a few more stats that I want to read out to you. Thomas Estevez has completed the most tackles than any other Reading player against Wycombe, and he was only on the pitch for 33 minutes. Not only that, Semedo also got the assist. I think apparently he says got an assist. I don't know where he got that from. I think Moore got the assist for that, didn't he?
I think so,
Liam Moore.
Yeah. So Reading have won their opening 3 home league games without conceding a goal for the first time in 45 years. This just smells a breaking 106 record, doesn't it?
You can say it smells of a 3-0 defeat on Saturday.
So there was a question that Ryan was gonna ask, but I think it's right. I'm going to quickly ask you now. With Estevez and Semedo, do you not think it would be a good idea maybe to do a rotation to get them in to maybe play the 90 minutes, or do you think he will still stick with the same team? Because I saw as well that Swift spoke to someone and said he won't be back till Christmas, apparently, according to what I saw on Twitter today as well. So what do you think? Do you think he will give them both an opportunity to maybe against Rotherham, or do you think he will stick? Because did you go and talk to him today, or do you talk to him tomorrow when you sit down with him?
No, unfortunately, there's no press conference, unfortunately.
So what do you think? Do you think he will stick with it, or do you think there'll be changes?
I personally think he should stick with the same starting 11 that started on Tuesday night. Whether he does or not, I think is anyone's guess right now. Clearly, Estevez made a good impression, but I don't think Holmes has done anything wrong, to be perfectly honest. I think defensively he's very sound, and he's been an absolutely superb addition to the defence, given the fact his lack of championship experience and the fact he's a centre-back. So I think it would be slightly harsh to drop him. I think Estevez will get his chance, get a starting spot, as time goes on. But I think, given the fact Estevez is only 18, and given the fact this is a completely new environment for him, I think it would be best if he is gradually phased in. A couple of substitute appearances, probably you only need 2, but I think one is maybe asking a bit too much. But if he has another half an hour on Saturday, then perhaps I would consider starting him for next Tuesday at Blackburn. But because I think in Holmes you've got a perfectly capable right back, albeit he doesn't perhaps have that attacking flair. But that's not really his job. His job is to defend, and he's part of a back line which has barely conceded a goal this season. So that's why I would stick with Holmes and with Semedo. I think he's been bright in his both of his sub appearances. But in terms of the front three of Elise, Jara, and Mate, I think I would still stick with those three and have Smedo as like an impact player.
Okay, so I'm going to ask both of you a question in a second, but I'm going to ask Mr. Lowe first. I completely lost what I was going to say then. I had something and it's gone. Here we go. This is what I was going to say. Right. So on this podcast, we play a game to get score predictions, and Ryan is way too good at it, so I might stop the game and just have it for fun because he keeps winning every bloody time. So what are you, Ryan? I'm going to go with you first because I know that you're quite good at this. What is your score prediction for Saturday?
Yeah, so like we've just said, we are very defensively sound. We don't give away much. I know you said Rotherham are very good with their set pieces. I know they missed a penalty on Saturday against, was it Nottingham Forest they played? Yeah, I believe.
Norwich.
Yeah, they definitely missed a penalty at the weekend. So I can see another clean sheet. I'm going to go for 2-0 Reading again.
Okay. Yeah, Rotherham played Norwich and they lost 2-1. So yeah. So what are you going for, Mr. Lowe? What's the score going to be?
Well, I said 2-0, but maybe I should go difference. I'll say 2-1.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going 1-0. I'm just going to go for it. 1-0, I think. I think we're going to play the exact same way as we did against Wickham. Couldn't even think of the team we just played against them, and I think we will do well. But yeah, that's it. Thank you ever so much for coming on, you beautiful man, and thank you, Ryan, for coming on and helping as well. You're not beautiful, but you're here. But yeah, thank you ever so much for coming on. Hopefully we will have you on again. Hopefully we will have you on again and bring you on and get some more of your knowledge about Reading and what you think and tap into that beautiful brain of yours further on down the line. So thank you ever so much for coming. Hopefully you had a good time as well.
Yeah, it's very good. Yes, thank you for having me. It's been enjoyable, and I look forward to listening to my dulcet tones tomorrow.
Right. And if anyone's watching the podcast, you can see that I will turn my head around every so often. It's because I'm talking to this little monkey. It's because her mum went out, so she's had to sit with me, and my son's gone to bed. So just come and sit with me. But you've been a very good girl, so well done. But right, what I want you to do is normally every week before I end this podcast, I always say bye like that. But I want you to do it. Right. Ryan, can you hear her?
Yeah.
She talks. Right. Right, you ready? What I want you to do, 3, 2, 1, I want you to go, bye. Right, you ready? Steady, go. Right. Thank you ever so much, everyone joining. Don't forget, you can go and follow us on all the social medias, and link down below is the Jonathon Lowe's Twitter page as well. I know that he posts stuff on Facebook as well, so I'll try and find a link for where you post that as well. But everyone, thank you ever so much for joining. We look forward to seeing you on Monday when Reading are still keeping clean sheets and still winning, and hopefully
Top of the league.
And still top of the league by 3 points. So thank you ever so much, and we'll speak to you guys soon. Bye.